Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to RAP Paranormal and Friends with your hosts,
Kim Purvis
and Alison Robinson. Make sure to check us out on our Facebook pages, RAP Paranormal and Friends and RAP Paranormal Busters, for up-to-date show information and events. Hey everyone, welcome to another night of RAP Paranormal and Friends. We have a special guest for you tonight. It's been a little while since we've done a show, so I'm very glad that we are finally able to connect with our guest here tonight, Richard Bigg. Richard is a native Eastern Pennsylvanian and has decades of experience in the paranormal research and investigations. He was the former director of Pennsylvania Paranormal Research Team, and in the last few years, he has been compiling a lot of local tales into his first book series, Strange Stories from the Skulking Stream. So welcome, Richard. I'm so glad we finally get to chat.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to know, before we get into some of your, books and things that you have out, I want to know, how did you get into the paranormal?
I was kind of born into it.
Mm-hmm.
Even before I was born, just weird things were happening around my mom when she was pregnant. And then just from the time I could talk, I would talk to my parents about dead relatives, people that they couldn't see, talking to them about things that were going to happen or people that were coming to visit before they showed up, talking about things that were going to happen before they did as if they already happened. Mm-hmm. Like I was confused about where we were in time, that kind of thing. When I was really little, I used to talk a lot about my previous lives that I had lived and things that I had done. So I've just always kind of been a weird paranormal type of dude, and just continued that as I grew up, took more of an interest in it, and just kind of learned as much as I like to learn as much as I can about the world in general. Mm-hmm. And I think that the paranormal is kind of a window into a deeper sense of reality. And I tend to experience things and see things and run into weird situations. So I just it's just kind of my life. I didn't really gain an interest in it in any particular time, or nothing really happened in particular that got me into it. It's just me.
Yeah. Kind of, I'm kind of the same way, honestly. I literally had experiences when I was growing up, very little. I had a dark figure next to my bed. My mom would always talk about how I was having conversations with somebody in the middle of the night. Sometimes it sounded like I was talking in tongue. I'd be crying, laughing. She remembers one time I had come downstairs and I looked at her and I said, I'm ready to go home now. And she was confused by that because we were already at home. And she didn't think anything of it until she talked to one of her friends and she goes, do you think she was talking about like a past life experience or something? But that she just recently brought up to me within the last year. But so I totally know where you're coming from with that because I grew up with that too. And, as I got older, we kind of discussed that. And a bunch of us decided we were going to go to the Villisca Axe murder house. And after that, it's just been kind of like, I want to know more why these phenomenons are happening. Is that why you do it? Or what drives you to keep doing it?
Once you get that, it's sort of an addictive rush when you do experience something that's beyond the normal. Seeing a ghost or talking to somebody who you can't see, who is acting as if they're in the room with you. It's really exciting. It's weird, and your heart beats a little bit harder, and you start sweating a little bit. It's kind of a rush. I get into it. That's why I got into doing more investigations back in the day. I haven't been doing any lately, but whenever I do get a chance, it's always exciting.
Where was the first place that you investigated?
Well, I guess my house, technically, when I was growing up as a little kid, I had seen visions of my grandfather dying before it happened, and while we were on vacation, and asked my parents about it as if this was something that they had already known was happening. After he died, I had talked to my grandmother and told her things that he wanted to pass along to her that wouldn't have made sense for like a 4-year-old to be talking to his grandmother about. So I think when I was about 4.5 or so, my grandmother sat me down in our dining room at my house, and we sort of had a little seance. So I guess that was like my first
4.5
paranormal attempt at transcommunication, trying to talk with my dead grandfather. Which,
insane.
Ironically, really didn't like me when he was alive because I used to creep him out. He would send me home when he was babysitting me, send me home because I would creep him out by talking about ghosts and dead relatives.
But he came back to talk to you.
Yeah, he had the gall to come back as a ghost and talk to me anyway.
Oh my gosh. That's insane. I think you have to be the youngest person I've ever heard to do a seance. Like, that is just insane to me.
Oh yeah, I had a little round ball of glass that I had found in the forest, and it was like I called it my crystal ball.
Oh my gosh.
I just knew that like you had to have a crystal ball for a seance, so I had that on the table and lowered the lights and did all that stuff.
Oh wow. So that
was probably the first.
Wow. That is
when I was about 5, we went on vacation to Virginia or somewhere down there, and I had found in some kiddie magazine that I had read in preschool. I got a copy of it, and it had a little blurb about a ghost story that took place nearby where we were staying, and I talked my parents into stopping by to try to see the ghost.
Oh my god!
It actually wasn't. It was the magazine had listed the wrong address, so we went to the wrong place. But that was my first attempt at going to an investigation when I was about 4.5 to 5.
Oh my gosh, that's insane! Oh my gosh, I can't believe that at 4.5. I mean, I saw little spooky, dark figures in my room, and I did all that kind of stuff, and it freaked me out, and I had to sleep with the nightlight till the 3rd grade until my dad's like, okay, here's the deal. If you get rid of your nightlight, I'll get you that Snoopy tackle box you've been looking at. I'm like, sold. Sold. But I was too I was so freaked out about that. So I can't believe at 4.5 you're like, okay, let's do a seance and let's go look for ghosts. Like, I was terrified at that age when I had that stuff happening because I had no idea or why they were coming to me or what it was or what it meant. You know, that's just mind-blowing to me. Now, when you've been on investigations, what do you think about it? Do you think that more of the hauntings are residual, or do you think they're intelligent from your perspective, like from your investigations?
I've been on investigations that turned out to be both. I did one investigation that was pretty interesting where the team wasn't notified of any of the background, and I had requested this as like the person that went over the evidence. I said we should do one where we don't know anything about the home that we're going into. So the leaders of the group at the time actually contacted the people or received the contact request for us to go there. Didn't tell us anything about it, and it was one of those things where things are coming off the wall. There was like a ladder on a stairwell that came off of the wall and would fall down. Plates and things would rattle. There were several reports around the house that we found regular, normal things to debunk them, like certain smells and things that we found causes for. But we didn't find any sign of intelligent haunting. Like there was nothing on EVPs. There was nothing. There was no sense of a presence. And that's something like I tend not to see ghosts a lot, but I can sense if there's something there. And I didn't get that at all. And in paranormal investigations, there's...
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
What I call psychogenetic hauntings or things, hauntings that are caused by people's emotional reactions and things. Historically, they're usually centered around younger girls. So I basically said, I'm willing to bet that there's a young girl that lives here who's going through some emotional hardships right now. And the mom said, yeah, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she's seeing a therapist and taking medications. And I said, that's your haunting right there. She's just, there's just things happening in the house because of her. She's getting treatment. It's going to be okay. Don't be afraid of it, you know. So that's that kind of haunting. I've been on cases where it is sort of a thing that seems to repeat itself. In my third book that's coming out later this year, I talk about the different kinds of hauntings. And my main theory is that what we're seeing in hauntings is sort of a presentation of what we would call post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD used to be measured by how close you came to dying. And there's different things that cause PTSD that don't involve death or physical trauma. Like you can have emotional trauma, but trauma itself used to be measured by how close you came to dying. So by that reasoning, you can assume that if someone dies and their intelligence and their consciousness lives on, that they would have experienced the most traumatic thing that a human can experience. So if you look at the psychological definitions for PTSD, there's things like reliving the traumatic events, and that's your classic residual haunting, you know, the same thing happening over and over again. I think sometimes that's a spirit literally focusing on those traumatic events. I do think that there are cases of, you know, just somebody washing the dishes over and over again. You'll see that person. But I think as far as classical, what we would consider a quote-unquote haunting, I think that a lot of times it's spirits that are traumatized by their death or by things that happen to them, and they're reliving it. One of the other psychological definitions or criteria for diagnosing PTSD is extreme acting out behavior or lashing out at minor threats. And you see that in hauntings with poltergeist activity, occult activity. Things get thrown around. I mean, if you picture what would really be happening if that was a person standing there, they're throwing things, they're pulling things off the wall and throwing them on the ground. It's obviously somebody having a hissy fit. They're having an emotional reaction to something. So I think that if you look at all of the things that you see in classical hauntings, I think they line up one-to-one with PTSD criteria.
So you think that a person, if they're going through some things in their life, do you think they can create their own hauntings?
Yeah, and I haven't seen that myself. Well, actually, maybe. I mean, I've had weird situations come up where I've seen people that are alive, and it's like a spirit, and they're not going through anything necessarily. Like, I don't know if that's me having that experience, like me having a vision of them, or maybe they're out of their body. Maybe it is a haunting type of thing. One thing that happens here at my current house, I've seen on several occasions, I've seen my dad walking around when he's not here. My dad's alive. He doesn't live here anymore, but I've seen what looks like him walking around.
Like a doppelganger?
Yeah, like a doppelganger, I guess. When he did live here, I had seen him sometimes like walk through the hall and go to the bathroom or something, and then I would see him do it again. I'd be like, wait, I thought you just went by, and he'd say no. My mom, when she lived here, had said that she, on a couple of occasions, woke up because she heard my dad come in to the room and say her name, and he was at work at the time.
Oh, wow.
So I think maybe there are cases where either spirits are acting like somebody who's alive, or somebody's having a vision of someone who's alive, or there's some kind of phenomenon happening where the person's consciousness has been sort of recorded onto reality, like we would see in a residual haunting.
Do you prefer, well, like, if you were to do an investigation, do you prefer residential, or do you prefer like a commercial type location to investigate?
I've always gotten the best evidence and things and had the most interesting cases with residential hauntings. I also am not really a fan of the sort of commercialization of paranormal investigation that has sort of come out of the 1990s and like the whole paranormal TV show, reality TV buzz type of thing. That was around when you started to see those commercial places charge investigators to come in and do investigations and things.
Some of them charge an arm and a leg to get into those places.
I've only ever paid to investigate one time, and it was a special case because it was to help out somebody, and because of how what the case was about. And I figured it was worth it for me to pay $10 to go in and get what I needed for the person and for the spirit. And that's in my third book. But yeah, I definitely prefer, and I also prefer helping people. So I think residential hauntings, a lot of times it's a family that is just trying to live their lives. And I think 9 times out of 10, it's people that don't even believe in hauntings. And they're just like, I don't know what's happening. I need somebody to tell me that this is just something that happens and it's okay. And sometimes that's all they need to hear. Sometimes you do have to go in and actually go a little bit further and do more investigation, do some more activity with the spirit, work with them a little bit to try to figure out what's going on. And I think that the things that come up with residential hauntings are just more interesting than a lot of the classical things. They tend to be like famous stories and things. And the book series is about the Schuylkill River, and we have sort of the most famously haunted locations along the Schuylkill River, like Penhurst or the Eastern State Pen in Philadelphia. Those are all right along the Schuylkill River. I don't touch on any of them in the book because they've all been told 1,000 times.
Right.
But you have residential hauntings where you have things where history seems to be repeating itself, like a family, a mother, father, 5-year-old son, and 1-year-old daughter moves into a house. The original owners of that house were the same. It was a mother, father, young boy, baby girl moved into the house. Like history is repeating itself. People that aren't even in the house are responding to it somehow. Like they're running into people that are telling them things that don't make sense unless they know about the house. Just really weird, like karmic sort of things that go beyond what you would consider normal haunting that people tend to look for when they go investigating it. The non-residential commercial type places.
Now, when you go into a residential location, what do you do to prepare yourself? Do you do any research? Do you ask them a bunch of questions to make sure that, they haven't done like a Ouija board or seance or anything in the house that could have, amped up this energy or anything like that?
Yeah, you want to know what you're going into. I always try to get a feel for what's going on before I even go there or anything. Just try to find out, like, is this somebody that might just need some mental help? Most of the time, it's just somebody that needs reassurance that, yeah, this is something that happens. Talk back to it, tell it, assert yourself, assert your dominance, assert that you're the owner of the house, and that they're not welcome. And call me back if anything, if it doesn't change and you still feel like you need help. And a lot of times they don't. And I call them back and they say, yeah, that worked. When I do go and investigate, I have an initial questionnaire that does cover all the things that you talked about. I also ask about the dates of things that happened and try to compare them to geomagnetic activity, sunspots and things like that. I look for things in the environment, like if they're near high power lines or if I go over everything with the K2 meter, make sure that there's not power leaks that are possibly causing psychological problems or things that can resemble a haunting.
Right.
And then
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I also try to ask things about, like, have you dealt with a Ouija board? Have you tried to contact spirits? And a lot of times it does track back to things like a Ouija board. I've had some of the roughest cases tend to track back to just minor things or what people consider minor things at the time.
Right.
And, yeah, so I try to gather all that information I can before I go in and do a little bit of initial analysis and try to find out what I think might be happening. And a lot of times I'm surprised at what it turns out to be, but yeah, I try to gather the information before I go in. I try to prepare myself. Obviously, as an investigator, you want to charge all of your batteries and make sure everything's charged. And I try to charge myself up, do a little bit of meditation, do a protective prayer or something like that before I go in. When I was with the PPRT, the Pennsylvania Paranormal Research Team, we would always stand in a circle and do a prayer, asking for protection. And when we left, we would always do a closing prayer and talk to the spirits directly, tell them that they're not welcome to follow us, things like that. Smudging, using sage and things like that if we need to, or just personally myself afterwards. That's the kind of thing I usually do.
Now, I know you said you use a K2. Do you use any other equipment?
Yeah, I have a couple of Frank's boxes, some EVP recording equipment. I have some wide spectrum cameras. I have a God helmet, which is a...
I've heard of those, yeah.
French, okay, yeah. I've got different lighting and recording devices, laser grids, the usual type of things.
Okay, perfect. Do you have a favorite?
Probably the God helmet. I've had a lot of really good experiences with that. I've worked with psychics, and they said that it's helped them to get in touch and feel things. Frank's box is also one of my favorites because you can get really direct communication with that. With the stuff like the Ovilus, where you have the pre-recorded words and it's just picking them at random, you never really know how much you're associating what words come up with what's being said. Some of them are really, really eerily similar. Like you almost have to think like there's something communicating with me when it's word after word. But with Frank's boxes, I think that I've gotten the most, as far as I'm concerned, the most relevant and meaningful feedback. I was lucky enough to have a couple of cases where I could actually talk, have a back and forth conversation as if I was talking with somebody over a walkie-talkie.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I know you've done a lot of paranormal investigations, and now you have books. Why did you turn to books? Like, what made you want to write about this kind of thing?
I like to read about paranormal things. There are some local authors that do paranormal stories of this region. Nothing really specific to right where I live or like the Lebanon County area. I was aware of a lot of the stories growing up, just, local folklore, local superstitions and things like that. And there's not like one place where you can find them all, and I'd like that. And I always enjoyed writing, so when I was in high school, my mom got me, for my birthday, a fortune reading, like a tarot, and I think she read my palms too.
Oh, okay.
And that was a really, really interesting one. She said some things that were really, really spot on. And one of the things that she told me was that I would write, that I would travel around to different interesting places and write about them.
Oh, very cool.
And several people have told me, just talking about the paranormal, that I should write a book. And
very cool.
Probably to shut me up when I'm blabbing on about the paranormal over and over. And it's like, just write a book and I'll read that. Shut up. But
then that's when you come out with it on audio, so they have to listen, right?
So, for years I had thought about it, and I collected the stories with like something in mind, and then when COVID happened, I had a lot of time to myself here at home and sitting around, and I was reading a couple of the Pennsylvania paranormal type stories books. And I thought I could write better than some of these. Yeah. So I started doing deeper research into it and getting the full stories. I found a lot of details about a lot of the stories that hadn't been published before, especially in a lot of the paranormal stories, paranormal books about the stories.
Oh, very cool.
So I thought that having done the research, having done the investigation in some of these places, I thought it'd be a good idea to sort of link them all together. So my book just got longer and longer. Eventually, I just split it up into 3 different books because it just would have been like 1,000 pages if I published it all together. So
oh my gosh!
I split it up, and yeah.
Yeah, and in volume 1, I believe, of the Strange Stories from Skulking Stream, you talk about cryptozoology. Now, is that something that also fascinates you, or have you ever gone out searching for any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I love animals, and I love the paranormal, so paranormal animals, things that people don't want to believe are real. It's obviously something I would be interested in. I've always been interested in Bigfoot.
Me too.
That's the one paranormal type of thing I think I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen a Bigfoot.
Nope.
I've had weird things happen that might have been something like that are associated with Bigfoot. Like I've heard weird stomping in the forest and had a tree come down in front of me, but I didn't see anything. So I can't say I've seen a Bigfoot, but I've always been interested in that kind of thing. In 2008 or so, I was at work in a nearby town here called Auburn, and the locals there were talking about this 3-eared rabbit. And I saw it one day when I was driving home, and I think that I don't think it was an ear, I think it was a horn.
Oh.
Rabbits can actually get keratinized tumors on their faces, and that's most likely where the jackalope legend comes from. Yeah. So I say that I've seen a jackalope, which is probably the most outlandish of the cryptozoological things. Some friends of mine have seen black panthers. I've seen a puma, a panther, which, according to Pennsylvania, the wildlife associations, we don't have them in Pennsylvania, but everybody knows that they're here. So that's sort of the most seen cryptozoological animal in Pennsylvania, the mountain lion, because the government doesn't want to admit that they exist here, but they obviously do.
Yeah, same here, mountain lions. Yeah, well, they don't have any, but everybody's catching them on their trail cams. You know, they're breeding. They have little ones with them, little cubs, whatever they call them. Yeah, but you know, don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I get that. So in your books, it's not just always about paranormal and stuff, but you also talk about like witchcraft and different legends and things of that nature too, correct?
Yeah. Eastern Pennsylvania is actually, well, Pennsylvania as a whole, but Eastern in particular because of the history. Pennsylvania is uniquely suited for witchcraft and magic use. Not many people know that William Penn sort of established Pennsylvania as a place for religious freedom. We had the first witchcraft trials in the United States, well, before the United States in the colonies. I think it was about 9 years before the Salem witch trials, something like that, down in Chester County, which is just a little bit beyond the Schuylkill River. Not long after the Salem witch trials, I think by a couple of years, also in Chester County, there was another witch craze among a group of Quakers. That case was really interesting because it associated a lot of the underground sale of occult books, and that sort of wrapped up stories with Ben Franklin and other figures that were part of this underground book sale of occult and magic use.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
in Berks County, Johann George Homan wrote The Long Lost Friend, which was a book of powwow or Braucherei, which is Christian folk magic. That took place in Berks County, which is another spot along the Schuylkill River. The sixth and seventh books of Moses was another grimoire from the Renaissance era, I think. And there was rumors that a special copy of that had been buried somewhere in the Blue Mountains of Schuylkill County, along the Kidney Ridge of the Appalachian Trail. So we have a long history of witchcraft, magic users. Where I live, within about 5 mile radius of me, there's probably a dozen stories from colonial times up through the 1800s of people using magic to do things like change shapes, turn into a white cat. We had a case of a guy cursing his murderer, a guy who would see a shadowy dog that would tell him to kill himself.
Oh, wow.
We had a wizard nearby here who, if you've seen the cover of the second book, Magic in the Mountains, there's a flaming wagon wheel. So this guy actually summoned this flaming red wheel of fire to drag along these thieves that had stolen a wagon cart top from a local farmer. So the farmer asked him for help. He stayed up late at night to find out, like, is he going to get somebody to bring my stuff back? Is he bringing it back? Did he take it, you know? And the sky turned yellow. Weird fiery shapes appeared in the sky. And this flaming wheel of red fire came rolling down the mountain with shadowy figures behind it, carrying all of the items that were stolen from his farm. In the first book, I talk about a werewolf, which would be a case of witchcraft used for changing shape. In the book on magic, there's a lot of witches or magic users that turn into cats.
Oh, wow.
One lady that turned into a pigeon.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Of all things, a pigeon.
Yeah.
Well, teach their own, I guess. I probably want to turn into something that I could tear people apart that pissed me off. I don't know. Not a pigeon. I mean, you could poop on people.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of them turn into big cats.
Yeah, exactly. Probably.
Or wolves, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you ever do any, like, expos or paracons or anything to get your books out there?
So far, I've done a lot of book signings. I have one coming up in a couple of weeks at the Mechanicsburg Mystery Bookstore.
Oh, okay.
I haven't done any of I've done a lot of historical things. I haven't done any paranormal conventions yet. I was waiting for the second or third book to come out before I started that, just because they are each focused on a little bit different things. So I figure if I get a couple different books on different subjects or sub-subjects of the paranormal, more likely to get more people to buy them before I start, paying to go to the conventions and things.
Right, yeah. I could see your point on that because, they are a little expensive to go to those things. Kim and I have only done 2 because they are kind of expensive. I mean, we don't really sell anything. We just go there and, have our cards and things and talk about paranormal and if they, promote our podcast and stuff like that. But they do get kind of expensive. So I could see where you're coming from on that. That's probably a good idea, like to have a couple of them out because, I do see a lot of people actually go to these things and buy books and stuff. So, I mean, you have some very interesting topics and things like that. Also, that will also, people will enjoy because we see it. Like I said, we go to these things and a lot of people pick up on that kind of stuff. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I am planning to now. I am also a homebody, so I tend to put things off, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go to the next one. So
yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
I agree with you on that sometimes too, you know, like just I don't do big and, you know, I don't do very well in big crowds, you know, because of the energies and things like that. Like it really gets to me, and I'm trying to, you know, do a little bit of that stuff, but it's very hard for me at times, especially if energy and stuff is off and whatnot. But so yeah, I mean, I could see that. I totally agree. Now, do you have any like social media or anything that our followers can like follow you or see what you're up to if they have any questions or want anything like that?
I have a website, richardbigg.com. Richard Bigg with 2 G's. Okay. So BIGG.com. I have X/Twitter profile that I rarely post on.
I'm on there too.
Okay, I'll look for you on there.
Yeah.
I can't think of what my handle is. It reads as Richard Bigg, but I think there's like an underscore in between. So just go to richardbigg.com and it links to there. Okay. Other than that, I'm pretty antisocial, so social media is not my thing. So just look for the books, look for the website. The website links to my other podcast appearances. If you want to hear more stories, if you want to read more stories and get a larger picture, go for the books.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah.
And my contacts are on there too if anybody needs information or wants me to investigate or do a presentation or something. I do presentations at libraries, bookstores often, so
okay, very cool.
Everything's on the website.
I'm with you on the social media. I have Twitter and stuff. I have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I don't do any of the other stuff. I just do those because that's how, you know, we let everybody know to listen to our shows. So that's pretty much what I post, and that's what you're gonna get. Because yikes, it's something out there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you tonight. Now, if anybody wants to buy your books, are they just solely on your website, or can they purchase them somewhere else? Or
there are a couple local bookstores. Like I said, the Mechanicsburg Mystery Bookstore, the Schuylkill County Historical Society. Right now, I think the first book is at the comic book store in Palmyra. I'm working on contacting some people. Like I said, I'm not big on being social, so reaching out to people and supporting myself. I'm not big on.
You're doing a great job right now.
I'm working on it. This is me forcing myself to do it. So the easiest way is to just go to the website. You can get it shipped to your house within a week or so.
Okay, perfect. All right. I will make sure all of our listeners, if you didn't quite get that, we will post it on our social media too, how you can get a copy of books, or if you want to find out any more future books or anything like that, or if you're in the Pennsylvania area and you hear that he's going to be doing something at a bookstore or anything like that, you know, we'll do our part in helping you find out where he's going to be or how you can get in contact with him. And thank you, Richard, for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Until next time, everybody, peace out.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No